The mental health field minus the spiritual core makes no sense. Our deep spirituality is our greatest resource for renewal, for healing. And even when we're faced with profound mental illness, spirituality is our source of hope.
Ever wished for a miracle pill that could erase all your problems? A one-tablet transformation into a new, happier, less depressed version of you? Science dangles that promise, psychedelics, and I believe that that's a false promise. But don't worry, there's a smarter path, and I'm spilling the beans in this episode. We have the goal to reach 50,000 subscribers by the end of this year. Podcasts are free, but crafting them isn't. Help us reach our goal by sharing this podcast and by clicking follow. In some scientific circles, a trend is emerging. Researchers are actively investigating the potential of psychedelics to develop drugs which can mitigate depression and trauma. These drugs are built off of the understanding of how psychedelics work minus the hallucinations. So the question science is essentially asking themselves is this: how do we obtain the objective benefits without any massive changes in our subjective experience? Over at the University of California, which has recently launched a psychedelic division, a group of trailblazing scientists are now modifying psychedelics so that they can preserve the therapeutic benefit, so the pharma aspect, but strip away the psychedelic or the hallucinogenic properties. And here's where I believe that we're making the biggest mistake. In this episode, I share 3 reasons that I believe pharmacology and psychedelics do not belong together. Your most mind-altering hour of the week. Hi, you're listening to Shift Happens, and I'm your host, Ina. Number 1. No hallucinations equals no healing. Number 2. No spiritual catharsis equals no healing. And 3. Symptomatic treatment does not produce systemic change. Hi, I'm Ina, and I've devoted 2 decades of my life to the study and application of the science of change. My expertise is an intersection between human behavior, neuroscience, psychology, and nothing gives me a kick more than producing lasting positive shifts in a person's behaviors. I believe that psychedelics hold that promise, but not in the way that mainstream science and media attempts to approach it today. Both the pharmaceutical industry, as well as some of the research groups supporting them, by proving the benefits of psychedelics, have a primary intent of bringing the psychedelics to our medicine cabinet, right there next to other psychotropic medications such as antipsychotics and antidepressants. To make this magic pill, scientists and clinicians are working on stripping psychedelics of their hallucinogenic effects and keeping only the pharmacological benefits associated with these entheogens. The reason that they're doing this is because they want to treat mental disease without the disease of hallucinating. But it's in hallucination where healing takes place. Psychedelics means the revealing of the psyche. Revealing is the act of making something that was previously hidden, making it known. And psyche is both the conscious and the unconscious. So psychedelic is making known that which is unconscious or unknown. And where does our trouble like to hide? Why are we having such a hard time getting to the root cause of our traumas? It's because they are stored in the unconscious mind for a very good self-preservation reason. We want to get to the unconscious stuff. We want to reveal the hidden. We want to explore the psyche. That's the whole point of psychotherapy, psychology, and other methods such as hypnosis, generative trance. Number 2, without spiritual catharsis, there can be no healing. Psychedelics are known to opening doors to profound transformations in your inner and spiritual realms. These are in science referred to as SERT, spiritual, existential, religious, and theological effects. You can think of it as 4 different dimensions. So spiritual is when you go beyond the material and you start to feel this sense of reverence and unity with everything. Existential is when you have these deep, profound questions about life's meaning, face your mortality, and the fleeting nature of your existence. Religious is when you are encountering archetypal symbols and divine beings. And theological is when we challenge how we understand our own divinity and reality. When the theological beliefs that you had take a twist and you get a new perspective on the grander cosmic order of things. Lisa Miller, a Columbia psychology professor who studies the science behind spirituality, reveals in her research that it is exactly this, spirituality itself, that acts as an antidepressant.
Together with my colleagues, we looked at people who recovered from depression through an awakening. We could see that people who suffered the most really derived profound support and even renewal when connecting to their higher power, to God, the universe, whatever their word might be. They were more likely to perceive and reflect in a profoundly spiritual way, and this tendency to see life on spiritual bedrock was mirrored by a thickening of the cortex, offering some evidence that sustained spiritual life is neuroprotective against depression. And in addition, when we looked at the awakened brain, what we saw is that universally, we are drawn into an experience in which we are loved and held, guided, and never alone.
Psychedelics are not the healers in and of themselves. They are the agents that facilitate the healing. So, of course, by binding some serotonin to some receptors, you could be producing some kind of therapeutic responses for the short term. But it's the cert experiences that we are ultimately after if we are looking for long-term systemic changes. 3. Symptomatic treatment does not produce systemic change. I understand the allure of obtaining therapeutic benefits without the psychedelic side effects. Skipping over the preparation, dieting, all the intention setting, coaching, hours of tripping, followed by weeks of integration. That would certainly make things simpler. However, by pursuing this route, we risk diluting the psychedelics' 2 primary superpowers, which is their ability to reveal the psyche through hallucinations and their ability to facilitate our connection to our own divinity through cert experiences. So if we were to strip away these 2 elements and retain only the pharmacological action of the serotonin binding receptors, what we would be in essence doing is exactly the same as the medications that belong to the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors group do already. And these are known like Prozac, Paxil, Celexa, and Lexapro. However, it's worth noting many of these drugs come with their own set of challenges. They can trigger the discontinuation syndrome, which involves severe withdrawal effects that can make quitting them so difficult, it's almost akin to something that is addictive, so addiction. And this is in essence how medicine works. I get it, we're used to this way of attempting to address our problems. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against medicine. Medications can be life-saving at the right time, but they are not the long-term answer and solution to our problems. And while the notion of separating therapeutic effects from psychedelic experiences is tempting, this is in a way a little bit of what microdosing is already doing. Taking dosages that are sub-perceptible over a longer period of time in an attempt to alter the circuits but not produce the hallucinations. That also means not having the catharsis. And that's why microdoses are not psychedelic, because the definition of psychedelic is by default psych revealing. And we already know that that's what produced the systemic change. So taking a pill without the catharsis is not psyche revealing. it is symptomatic treatment, and it's not sustainable long term. So far, much of the excitement around psychedelic-assisted therapy is focused on the psychedelic themselves, but now it's best that we invest more in the best practices for the therapy aspect of the psychedelic-assisted therapy. More specifically, we must find a way to work with and support the user's spiritual, existential, religious, and theological experiences. Thank you, and have a good week.